Sling TV has something for everyone. It really just depends on what kind of mood you're in. But no matter what you're looking for, you can watch it with Sling. Sports, news, and today's hottest shows. Plus, you can explore thousands of movies and TV shows on demand. And getting Sling is easy. Sign up and start watching in just 5 minutes. Stream on any device and record up to 50 hours with your included DVR space. Plus, you won't get locked into a long-term contract. Check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. Welcome to the Andy Staples Show, presented by Sling. We are talking coaching carousel. There is a lot going on. It is Monday. It's been a few hours since Auburn hired Hugh Freeze and made that announcement official. Matt Rule has been introduced at Nebraska. Luke Fickell has been introduced at Wisconsin. UNLV has fired Marcus Arroyo. Texas A&M has fired in-name-only offensive coordinator Darryl Dickey with the most terse statement I think we've ever seen. It was one sentence. It was like, Darryl Dickey's been relieved of his duties. Thanks. Bye. That was it. It is a Scott Dockerman day. We're all recovered from our cottage cheese comas. Scott, I appreciated that, all through Wednesday and Thursday, I had people reaching out on social media saying, "Hey, I'm from Iowa." And what Scott said is completely normal.
I had cottage cheese. I liked it. And after a while, I'm like, oh my God, this is like running the gauntlet back in high school, running through the blaster, and you're like, boom, 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 boom.
Oh, yeah.
But except it's more like people taking all kinds of shots. I'm like, wow, I feel like Ari with some of these hits,
I felt bad, Scott. I didn't mean to unleash that on you. You're too good of a guy. But when I saw that a restaurant was serving it, I was like, okay, I guess this is normal. I saw a restaurant menu with it on there.
Yeah, it's in the Manna Colonies, which is kind of the German territory of Iowa. So yeah, that's I guess that's kind of nature to what we do here, I suppose.
Well, I am glad. I wanted to make sure that we pointed that out. That Scott is not as unusual as we made him sound. So he's very much on brand for where he is. He's drinking it.
What's under that? What's under that koozie, pal?
The koozie's a Ham's beer koozie. That's the best part.
Yes, that's the nectar of the gods here in Iowa and Wisconsin. So unfortunately, it's a Diet Pepsi. But
I thought we were. Hey, I thought we were doing a buzzed podcast tonight. I'll go get a drink.
I've done that once before. That was when the Cubs won the World Series.
We got to talk about Hugh Freeze getting hired at Auburn, but Michael Hartman coming in hot in the live chat. If Ryan Day's seat is actually getting worn, what big name could Ohio State target to replace him? Let's not be that kind of coaching carousel show quite yet. But that's impressive. I appreciate you just being shot straight out of a cannon.
A few more Diet Pepsis from Scott. Maybe he can go on a 20-minute monologue about why Urban should replace Ryan again.
Mike Vrabel, baby. Mike Vrabel.
Well, something's got to happen with Ryan Cooper Day, so I don't know.
Oh boy.
No. Okay, we're gonna move back to the land of the real, and really, what really happened on Monday is Auburn hired Hugh Freeze. Now, I want to actually congratulate Auburn Athletic Director John Cohen for not falling into a trap, or possibly the PR professionals who crafted this quote for John Cohen, for them not falling into the trap. They announced that Hugh Freeze was hired. There was nothing about being a builder of souls and a leader of men. None of that. This is what John Cohen said, or it was attributed to him. After a thoughtful, thorough, and well-vetted search, we ended where we started with Hugh Freeze. Of all the candidates we considered, Hugh was the best fit. Fit has several meanings, but the most important factors were student-athlete development, football strategy, recruiting, and SEC experience.
It's perfect.
That's what you needed to say. Don't fall into the trap at the press conference on Tuesday morning and be like, oh no, Hugh is a leader of men and he's changed since he was fired at Ole Miss for using his university cell phone to call hookers. Don't say any of that. Just say, we hired him to get dudes and win games, because that's what he does.
All that statement said was football.
That's right. That is exactly what he should say, because you're going to get those questions if you're John Cohen, and there's not much you can say to them. You're going to get those questions if you're Hugh Freeze, and there's not much you can say to him. Now, I will say, Hugh Freeze has been pretty upfront about all this stuff. He will say, I did it, I messed up, and I'm sorry. Which, by the way, there's not much more you can say in that situation.
Also, the downfall of so many coaches has been lying. Like the action, a lot of times has been less. Not that this one isn't severe, but the thing that
might have been part of the reason Hugh Freeze got fired for cause at Ole Miss, because the initial conversation with Ross Bjork, who was the AD at the time, might not have been entirely truthful.
So when you have a cell phone and it's a public cell phone, do they just vet it normally?
Well, when a lawyer representing Houston Nutt gets your records, listen. Anytime there's something involving Houston Nutt and cell phone records, like if you are involved in something that also involves Houston Nutt and someone requests your cell phone records, just move to the Bahamas. Like, leave the country, because something bad's going to happen to you.
Ari had 377 phone calls with Domino's, all of which ranged less than 2 minutes in time.
Exactly. Like, at first, Houston Nutt victimized himself with all those text messages to the lady. But the second time, he got Hugh Freeze with those other phone calls. So that's the thing you've got to be careful with.
Is there a Houston Nutt last name joke here, or should we just move on?
Do you really want to get canceled tonight?
No,
is that your goal?
Okay, I can't control myself.
Hey, I actually covered a game with him when he was at Murray State.
Oh, the Racers.
1996 playoffs. But all that stuff's open record. So it's easy to get. I did that once with Steve Alford when he was the Iowa coach and flirting with New Mexico.
Yeah, so here's the deal. John Cohen, Chris Roberts, president at Auburn, Hugh Freeze yourself. When you get up there on Tuesday morning, stick to football. And I realize we're the ones who yell at people when they tell us to stick to sports. But your best bet is to stick to football, because there is a significant portion of the Auburn fan base that's mad about this hire, that is embarrassed about this hire. My guess is they will not be as upset. Some of them may never forgive you. Most of them will if you win. And I got to say, Hugh Freeze can win at Auburn. He is pretty well positioned to win at Auburn. If you look at what he did at Ole Miss, and then you look at the changes in the sport, it actually favors him being better at Auburn than he was at Ole Miss.
So let me ask you guys, what is the percentage, or maybe not percentage, the scale from 1 to 10 of desperation here? Is this a desperation hire, or is this a measured, this guy is going to be the best at winning?
Oh, this is a calculated risk. This is a completely calculated risk.
But if it wasn't as terrible as it's been, do you make this calculated risk, and where does that end up on the desperation scale?
I don't know how desperate here's the thing about it.
It didn't feel desperate, but the results reeks of desperation.
So he's a guy who got dudes at Ole Miss, beat Nick Saban 2 years in a row, twice in about 6 years. You know who got dudes and beat Nick Saban like twice in 6 years?
Gus
Malzahn. But you had to do something different last time. And it didn't matter who was doing the hiring, because the faction that wanted to fire Gus and install Kevin Steele wanted it to be the defensive guy being hired. And then Alan Green, who was the athletic director at the time, wanted to hire Brian Harsin because that's who he decided he wanted to hire. But all of that was basically a repudiation of Gus Malzahn. This is an admission that, no, that was probably the right guy. So they hired Gus Malzahn with baggage, essentially. And Hugh's a buddy of Gus's. Like, they're pals.
Yeah.
This is essentially almost them going, hand up, we screwed up. Should have never fired Gus in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was a bad move. And Brian Harsin was, where does it rank as far as SEC hires? I mean, to go group of 5, do we ever see another firing or hiring like this? I mean, Urban Meyer was great when he went from Utah to Florida, but he was at a
Billy
different
Napier
level.
Came from the group of 5.
Yeah, but he was from the South.
He just lost to Florida State too.
Yeah.
So
Hey, you watch your mouth, okay? It's a build.
they're not happy. The natives are not happy after the Vanderbilt and Florida State losses. I'm with you. You got to figure out, can he recruit? You hired him to build a roster. So he either will or he won't, and you can't decide that right now. But the Hugh Freeze hire, I am convinced it can work really well for Auburn, because forget what he got fired for. We've discussed that. Much of the controversy around Hugh Freeze while he was at Ole Miss were accusations that Ole Miss was buying players. Guess what's now basically legal?
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So, and Auburn will have a large NIL kitty, and Auburn.
It's much easier to win at Auburn, especially now, than it was ever at Ole Miss.
Correct.
Unless you think
Auburn,
that Ole Miss was cheating at a level that made them have a star competitive advantage.
I don't think Ole Miss was doing anything different than
anyone else.
Many of the other old line SEC schools. Like I don't really think, but people got mad because Ole Miss isn't supposed to get those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are certain schools, and Auburn's one of those schools that's supposed to get those guys. So, I mean, we could be talking about dudes everywhere at Auburn. I mean, Auburn, minus Brian Harson's classes, always has some dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Question is if they're moving into dudes everywhere territory.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Derek Browns, that's somebody that they should get. And just like when he was at Ole Miss getting Laquan Treadwell, that was a strange pickup, but it was Robert
Laramie Tunsil. Laramie Tunsil from Lake City, Florida.
Can we also talk about how the Laramie Tunsil thing on draft night was one of the craziest things that's ever happened in the history of sports?
It is. I was at Sports Illustrated at the time. We were doing a live draft show, and that video pops up, and I'm like, oh my God. And
I was in my living room and my mouth dropped. I've never seen anything like that before.
It was wild. It was wild. And craziest part of it is at the draft, Jimmy Sexton is there with Hugh Freeze, his client, and Laramie Tunsil, his client. And it's just like, that's a pretty strange situation to get thrown into.
Laramie Tunsil almost got a touchdown pass on Sunday too, by the way.
Yeah, that cost him a lot of money, but was a bargain for the Dolphins, and then they got to fleece the Texans and got some draft picks.
Bill O'Brien, man, what a horse trader he was.
Hey,
Lane
we're not talking about him right now because Bill O'Brien may be headed back to the NFL. That's one possibility. So we've not seen Bill O'Brien get a head coaching job, and it certainly seemed like it's always interesting when the Alabama fans are like, get rid of this coordinator, and he miraculously gets a head coaching job somewhere. But that was going to happen. If it doesn't happen, my thinking is when this season ends, Bill O'Brien's going to the NFL somewhere.
If Bill O'Brien ends up in the NFL somewhere, that's like the bet. Like Alabama's like the rehab for coaches, right? But even if you relapse, you're still going to get another job somewhere, like
well, and
it works out well for you no matter how
when Nick
it goes.
Saban decides to rehome you, he seems to find good homes for you.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Bill O'Brien becomes the new Iowa offensive coordinator. Book it.
They would love it here. That would work because he and Ferentz, all the Ferentzes are tight. So, you know who else would love it? Me. I have something to write about that's more than 10 points.
Now, here's the thing. Bill O'Brien actually is a pretty good offensive coordinator. The Alabama fans are mad because things didn't go the way they want. That's more about developing receivers, I think, or recruiting receivers out of the portal, or however we want to talk about it. It's not normal to have as many first-round receivers as they had in a row, and there was bound to be a dip at some point. It came this year, and that stinks for you guys because it's not what you're used to. But I think that's probably the bigger issue at this point.
The one thing I wanted to go back to Freeze that I was thinking about today is when Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma to USC, we had the discussion of heel, right? Or like the villain of the sport.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of subsided a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think, do regular fans hate him or just Oklahoma fans?
I think some regular fans hate him. I think
he doesn't feel hated to me.
There's a subset of fans who feel like if you use the portal to build your roster, it's still cheating. And so I think that group will get smaller and smaller every year. But
once it becomes a more accepted reality.
right, exactly. So I think there's that. Hugh Freeze personality, like, and Hugh and I have talked about this. Like, he could be the heel, but his personality is not to embrace that. He wants everybody to like him.
Yeah.
He really does.
Yeah.
And so it might be easier for him if he just grow a goatee and say, I'm the bad guy. And you know what? His fans would embrace him if he won and did that. But, or his team's fans. But
well, everybody wants to be the good bad guy or the successful bad guy.
yeah. Not everybody. No. Like I'm telling you, Hugh Freeze wants you to like him. He wants everyone to love him. And that's a normal personality trait. There are a lot of people like that. And so that'll be interesting to see how he deals with, because it will be ferocious. Like the backlash to this is going to be ferocious.
It's like people standing outside the stadium on game day with posters, ferocious.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. And he's going to have to deal with that. And he's going to have to learn to let it go. Ari, it's like you and I have this discussion about when people say mean things to us on Twitter or in the comments under our stories, and neither of us is particularly great at letting it go. Like he has to pretend none of that stuff exists. Otherwise, because if even one millionth of it gets, to him, it's going to bug him.
So do you think that we want people to like us people?
I think partially we are. I think I don't think I could truly embrace being a heel.
Yeah.
I don't think I would like that very much. Yeah. Yeah. So, and he, like, Hugh Freeze, well-documented history of like going into people's DMs after Twitter searching or seeing people, say things about him or say things about people he likes. He'll hit you in the DMs like that. That's probably got to stop if you're going to be a head coach at Auburn. It's a different level of scrutiny being the head coach at Auburn. And it's more scrutiny than Ole Miss too. Like Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, Alabama, those jobs in the SEC. I think Florida probably qualifies. Like you got to be pretty careful what you do because everything becomes a thing.
Yeah.
Everything becomes a 4-hour discussion on Feinbaum for 3 days a week. And I mean,
precisely. I mean, look at Jimbo Fisher's season.
Yeah.
And that's just from losing games.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, this will be interesting, but I advise John Cohen and I advise Hugh Freeze and I advise Chris Roberts, do not fall into the trap of
trying to pretend like it's something it's not.
Making this a morality play. It's not a morality play. It's football, and you're paying millions of dollars to someone to win football games. That is why you were paying him. If you really cared about the person you hire as your head coach being a molder of young men and what blah, 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 you would have kept the interim you just had. You don't care about that. You care about winning games. And you know what? If you're going to admit that, that's fine. At least you're being honest.
What's wrong with admitting it? Like
nothing.
It's the literal conference slogan.
It is. So, exactly right.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
So, So it's just, you got, like, I don't know. We don't have to talk about the baggage, but it's just like, it is there and it's going to be a discussion point. And the only thing that's going to make it stop.
People made up all these rumors about Brian Harsin when they were trying to fire him for free.
That were less
bad
than the actually happened.
With Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss.
Right.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
It is.
This is all about just let, in his case, it's exactly what you said. Let him walk in the door, maybe play Disco Inferno, walks to the podium, and then it's a football decision. This is all it's all about.
Yeah, and when Hugh gets up there, be like, we're going to fling it around.
Yeah.
We're going to get 5-star recruits. We're going to beat Alabama. Thank you and God bless. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you after. I'll talk to you on signing.
Well, what do you think Nick Saban's reaction was to this in a private room when he saw it? Because, like, let's give Saban some ass juice. Yeah.
Damn it. That's what he was saying. He does not like dealing with that offense. Does not like it.
Yeah.
Does not relish the idea of dealing with it.
Well, he's also going to be dealing with his face every single day in the state of Alabama, too.
Absolutely. And Hugh Freeze is an aggressive recruiter.
I
like
know.
we talked about Lane Kiffin being willing to go up against Nick and Kirby head to head for players. Hugh is actually more willing. Like Hugh is a more aggressive recruiter.
And tell me that's not the most effective litmus test of whether you made the right hire or not from a football standpoint. What is Nick Saban's reaction?
I think you're right.
If you have Nick Saban saying, damn it, then you did the right thing from a football standpoint.
From a football standpoint, exactly. Yeah. And again, you're paying millions of dollars for this person to win football games. I realize there are people out there who think it's not about that, but every hiring and firing ultimately is about that.
Yep.
Now, well, I say that.
Well, do you think in like 15 years,
reasons firing Ole Miss might not have been about that?
Do you think in 15 years of college football that we can just let go of the academic stuff and the APR or whatever it is, and all that stuff, and just be football? Or do you think it's always going to have some sort of school, student athlete, young scholar, mentality to it? Do you think the NIL game is going to change that?
I think people want to believe that these are regular students when they've never really been regular. No, I say that. Some of them have been regular students. Like in some cases, you've had like walk-on guys who became great. You've also had guys who were, superior, high-level recruits who were good at football, who also were incredible students and took advantage of the academic resources at their universities. That is not the case for most of the elite teams now.
Yeah, some colleges have regular students for their entire roster.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are too many cases of where players walk in with one major in mind and then go to interdepartmental studies because they don't have the time to become.
Because they got shifted that way. Like, no, you can't take this class meets Tuesdays at 9:30, and we practice on Tuesdays at 9:30. So you're gonna have to pick another major, son.
Do you really want to be an engineer? That's going to take you away from this. I've seen players who didn't make the depth chart because of that. So, but the situations that are kind of funny when you look back, remember Jim Tressel with the gold pants and all that? That's just nothing.
Okay. Ultimately Jim Tressel, but it was nothing then too, if Jim Tressel didn't lie to the NCAA investigators about it. If he'd been like, yep, that happened, that would have been that. Like there would have been, the players would have been punished anyway. They were going to be punished anyway. And Tressel would have gotten off scot-free. Now, he's a university president now, so you could argue he did okay. It turned out okay for him. But it was because he lied. Now, I understand why he lied, too. He's probably trying to protect those players.
Right.
But they were going to get caught anyway. So it was all dumb. Like, everything about that whole thing was dumb. I'm glad we're past that era. All of the money spent and ink spilt on the accusations at Ole Miss, the NCAA stuff I'm talking about, not the off-field stuff, was a complete waste of time and money. It was a complete waste. It was stupid. It was college-educated, well, actually, people with law degrees wasting their time asking a bunch of recruits and their parents who paid for their hotel room at some point. Like, who cares?
And the amount of money that went into the investigation probably surpassed the amount spent on the hotel rooms.
Oh, it was like 10 times the amount.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was just, so we're actually more evolved in that sense because of what's happened. But
I also think the regular fan just doesn't care anymore.
I think you're right. And I think a lot of why the regular fan doesn't care, especially about that stuff, is they've seen how the coaches' salaries have skyrocketed. And I mean, we are as guilty of perpetuating this as anybody else. Like, we talk about their contracts all the time. Like, Mitch Sherman put out all the Matt Rule contract numbers, and we're going to talk about them on this show.
Yeah.
So like that's why, but people are stupid. Like, they know tuition's gone up a little bit, but it hasn't gone up at nearly the same rate as coaches' salaries. And so they're like, and here's the other thing. We're going to see a lot of ADs in Las Vegas. They're always out for the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame stuff. And I will laugh at them and say, remember how you guys told us that NIL or pay, letting players get paid would make it where you couldn't pay for stuff? You're still giving out idiotic extensions where you've been against yourself. Like, Magically, you found the money. How?
I think there's
How'd you
plenty
do
of
that?
money. Yeah. Yeah, that's not a problem. But before the end of this podcast, Andy, we have to, and Scott, we have to compare the SEC head coaches versus the Big Ten coaches and which conference is deeper now.
Ooh, I like that. That sounds like something that we'll clip as a video on demand.
But but don't you think that like the Big Ten really made a move
up
to move on from Hugh Freeze? Like the Big Ten really made a move in the last 2 days, didn't it?
No question.
I'll tell you what, let's talk about that when we come back. When we return, Big Ten coaching lineup, SEC coaching lineup. Big Ten, they got all the money in the world now. Are they going to have the same level of coaching trees as the SEC? We'll talk about it when we come back. Sling TV has something for everyone. All your favorite shows on your favorite channels, all right at your fingertips. What you watch is up to you. It really just depends on what kind of mood you're in. So if you're looking for sports, Sling's got you covered with pro and college football and basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, golf, racing, and so much more. Sling also has reality TV, so you can keep up with the latest gossip with today's hottest shows on channels like TLC, Bravo, MTV, and more. And don't forget about news. Get up to date with today's most trusted sources like MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News. Feeling adventurous? Explore thousands of movies and shows on demand. So what kind of mood are you in? No matter your answer, Sling has what you need. Getting Sling is easy. Sign up and start watching in just 5 minutes. You can stream on any device, and you can record up to 50 hours with your included DVR space. And the best part, you can pause or customize your subscription at any time. So check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know how I feel about Roback. Makes you elite. Allowed me to catch a pass in an SEC football game. Never did that before. Also, changing the way I teach my children. I always said we don't half-ass anything in this family. We whole-ass everything. Because of that, I was very against quarter zips. Why would I want to quarter zip anything? I want to whole zip something. Well, then I got a Q-zip from Roback, the performance Q-zip to be exact. If you're watching on the feed right now, look at this thing. It is glorious, and it is comfortable, and it looks amazing, and it's changed my whole mind on this thing. I'm quarter zipping all the time. I'm not quarter assing, but I am quarter zipping. And if you want performance Q-zips, performance polos, performance hoodies, which are so comfortable, everyday shorts, performance joggers, well, you got to get them from Roback. They will make you so athletic that you can catch a pass in an SEC football game. They will change your entire philosophy on life. They're also just really comfortable and look good. So go to roback.com. That's RHOBACK.com. Roback.com. Use the code Andy for a generous 20% off for all new customers through the end of this week. That is roback.com. RHOBACK.com. 20% off all polos, Q-zips, hoodies, and shorts with the code Andy. Welcome back. And Ari set us up with a great topic because Hugh Freeze headed to Auburn. Now the SEC coaching set is complete as far as we know for now. Luke Fickell introduced at Wisconsin on Monday. Matt Rule introduced at Nebraska on Monday. The Big Ten coaching lineup, as far as we know, is set. How does the Big Ten stack up to the SEC now?
Derek Walker just commented, Nick Saban, Brian Kelly, Hugh Freeze, Lane Kiffin, Sam Pittman, Mike Leach, and Jimbo Fisher in a division.
It's pretty strong. Now, where's the cut line there? Like, where would you put can we agree that Jim Harbaugh is the best coach in the Big Ten at the moment?
So, like, if you did it down the list here, you'd do
where would
Saban.
you put him? And Kirby's
you got to go. Yeah. I think the SEC is going to win because they're top heavy, like the actual conference.
Yeah.
But the head coaching tier would probably be Nick Saban, and then you would put Jim Harbaugh number one, right? That would be the Big Ten's match for that, Scott?
Yeah, I'd probably go Jim Harbaugh. It's funny, 2 years ago we wouldn't.
Kirby above Jim Harbaugh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just rank them 1 through 20. Well, we won't rank them 1 through 28. We don't have to kill number 28 or anything. But so Saban 1, Kirby 2, right?
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh 3.
or Brian Kelly 3?
I go
Jim
Harbaugh.
Harbaugh.
Okay, Harbaugh 3. Ryan Day or Brian Kelly here?
Brian Kelly.
You'd
Okay.
go Brian Kelly.
I don't know. I'll let you. I've got my Ryan Day takes off this week. I'll let you do it, Scott.
Yeah, I'm going to go Ryan Day. I think 2 years removed from a national title appearance. They've lost one game last year. They've lost one game this year. That's better than Brian Kelly, whether it was at Notre Dame or at LSU.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say, Scott.
Yes,
And this might be a clip, but I'm gonna say it to
All
you
right.
for everybody
Go
thinks
for
I'm the Buckeye homer. Let's really get into it here. Ryan Day is 45-5 at Ohio State, right? Impeccable record, national championship appearance. When he took over Ohio State, they were one of the top 3 programs in college football, and the without question top team in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
Now Ohio State is not even the best team in its own conference. It's missed the playoff presumably 2 years in a row. It's lost its rivalry game 2 years in a row, and he's been lapped by Jim Harbaugh. So I don't give a crap what his record is. His record is completely and utterly meaningless to me. It's about what you accomplish with your team. And I do think that is probably more important to me than the record. So that's what my thought process is. Ohio State has regressed as a program under his leadership so far.
I would also say that the last 2 years they have lost to Michigan, which has improved incredibly. I will also say the 2 years before that they got to the playoff. They won their first game and got beat by an all-time great Alabama team. It's just too bad it was during COVID, so not very many people watched it. And the year before, they got, there were a couple of targeting calls away from getting to the championship game again. So I don't think that 2 years removed from being 22-2 makes him a bad coach. I think it makes him now, okay, your changes in the offseason to get past Michigan did not work. It's time to get back to work. Now, I don't think it's.
I don't think he's a bad coach. We're just wondering whether or not he should be ranked as a top 4 in both of the conferences.
Well, Brian Kelly just lost to a 4-7 Texas A&M team.
I don't think that. No, I just don't think that any program that Brian Kelly has led has gotten worse under his leadership.
This is also year 1 in that situation. So, but yes. All right. So of course, Ryan Day's year 1 was pretty spectacular.
But
so
yeah, Ryan Day inherited a
very different situation,
and played in a conference too with teams that weren't equipped to beat them. So
but LSU won a national title just a couple of years ago.
Jimbo Fisher won a national title a few years ago.
the
coach have said 4-17.
Yeah.
All right. So let's reset.
A little inner debate in the middle of the podcast never killed anyone.
No,
I love it. I love it. Nick Saban's number 1, Kirby Smart's number 2, Jim Harbaugh's number 3. You can argue one way or the other whether it's Ryan Day at 4 or Brian Kelly at 4, but those are 4 and 5. Who's next? Is it the guy who's been good in both conferences?
James
the only guy,
Franklin.
James Franklin. Where's Josh Heupel? Where's Josh Heupel fall in this thing?
Well, is he the Mel Tucker of this year?
That's a good question. It's a good question.
I mean, where do we stand with
Josh Heupel's never had a bad season as head coach, though.
Okay,
now, I
so
realize he walked into one great situation at UCF and one terrible one at Tennessee, but has never had a bad year.
Guys, I'm a Texas A&M homer here, but one of coach we haven't put on the list yet has won a national title. Now it's a complete dumpster fire right now. So do those two things cancel each other out? Like when do we start?
I'm putting James Franklin ahead of Jimbo right now, as it stands. There's no question about that. The question is
because it's right what they are right now.
Is there somebody who deserves to be above James Franklin?
Mike Leach potentially.
I mean, would you put? He did win the Egg Bowl, so would you put him above Lane Kiffin right now? Let's put it this way: is James Franklin going to be the last Big Ten coach we mentioned before a run of SEC coaches, or is Luke Fickell getting slipped in there? Because
there's one that you're going to sleep on, but I think should be pretty high up on this list, and that's Pat Fitzgerald. I know that had a terrible year. You know what?
He had 2 terrible years in a row.
I mean, what this guy's done at Northwestern,
it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing, but he's not doing very well right now, and I'm not sure he gets it back. That's the problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
He
the
could be
fact that
headed
he
down
ever
the same
had it
road that
was.
could be headed down the same road David Shaw was headed down.
I mean, before
That's-
this year started, I would have said that Pat Fitzgerald potentially is one of the top 15, 10 best coaches in college football.
He's a great coach, but he needs 2 new coordinators. Once Hankwitz retired, that defense went right in the pot, and that's one thing that they can hang their hat on.
We also haven't mentioned our guy with the best job in America, Mark Stoops.
This is really, really difficult.
It is.
Well,
It is. Now, I think
because the thing
Fickle
is
at,
that a lot of them-
Wisconsin is going to be very high up on this list if we do this again next year.
But also, too, it's like, how do you compare like a coach like James Franklin to a coach like Mike Leach when what they've done has been so different?
Well,
like,
actually, you can compare. That's
I mean, I
the
guess
one guy you
Vanderbilt-
can, because James Franklin won 9 games 2 years in a row at Vanderbilt, and this is the truth. This is what I always ask people: who among the college football coaches that work
no, I know,
right
but
now
you can't
could pull
nag
that off?
Pat Fitzgerald for the last 2 years and then talk to me about James Franklin's Vandy days. Like, those are two.
Yeah, but James
conflicting
Franklin's
ideologies.
also 10-2 right now.
Yeah,
But he he was 7-6 last year after being in the top 5 and had a losing record 2 years ago.
yeah.
You know,
I don't know.
the guy that I cover, people make fun of him all the time, but he's tied for the 3rd most wins in Big Ten history.
Well,
He's got 5 top 10 finishes, 2 championships, and he's been in a bowl game every year but once. in the
And a
last
few
20 plus
spicy press
years.
conferences this year too.
Yeah.
Mark
He's had
Stoops,
more than
Mark
a few,
Stoops is
yeah.
the Kirk Ferentz of the SEC. Is that agreeable? Can we say that?
I think
That they're
so.
basically analogous?
Because Mark Stoops has done a great job at a program that hasn't really had much traction at all, other than a few years there when Rich Brooks was there with Andre Woodson and and Kirk.
Andre
again,
Woodson could sling it.
Yes, and Kirk has had again a remarkable run of success going into this year. He was 7th in Power 5 winning percentage the last 5 years. So
And there's another coach in the SEC that I would buy stock in right now, and that's Shane Beamer.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and again, Heupel. Now,
Heupel,
we haven't
Beamer.
mentioned PJ Fleck. We haven't
No.
mentioned Jeff Brom, who's about to play in the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
Like, but this
Bielema,
underscores the point that Ari, I think, was trying to make. There's a lot of coaching talent now. Like, we're going to be saying some of these guys are bad because they just can't win every game because they're all playing each other.
Well, I think that the SEC's coaches are top heavy. Like, you have Saban and Kirby Smart, who are undeniably the 2 best coaches in college football.
Who's terrible in the SEC?
I guess nobody's terrible except Vanderbilt, but Clark Lee also has.
Clark Lee just beat
Beat
Billy
Florida.
Napier and Mark Stoops.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, is there an absolutely terrible Big Ten coach?
Well,
I don't-
you look at Tom Allen.
The commenters are saying Tom Allen had a few good years. He's got to figure out how to get that back. Like, was Kalen DeBoer the magic secret sauce that made Tom Allen's program better?
COVID was, and it affected everybody around.
They
him, but
they
not
were
him.
they were decent before that though. The 2019 they weren't bad either. But yeah, he's got to figure out what it was that they were doing right then and figure out how to repeat that. It seems like they're not going to make a change, and he's got a pretty big buyout from what I understand. So I think that he's got another year to figure that out.
Well, it would be very interesting too if you did this list and you just did it by salary total. Like, it might look similar, but there might be some Big Ten coaches out of place too. It's like when you look at like what Hugh Freeze just got paid from Auburn, it doesn't even compare. And I think maybe part of that is because of the baggage that comes along with it, but it doesn't compare with some of the salaries that the Big Ten is handing out right now.
It's the leverage situation with Hugh. And he did have some leverage because Liberty had given him a nice deal, but he really wanted back in the SEC. I think if Auburn had offered him like $4, he would have taken it.
Yeah.
Because he just really wants to be back in the SEC.
And if you're any good, his money will come.
Yeah. And so here's Matt Rule, since we want a nice, fresh example. This is an interesting one because of the way the salary escalates, because remember, he's still getting paid by the Panthers. There's an offset. So Nebraska has to give him a market value salary for those years that he's supposed to be paid by the Panthers. Otherwise, the Panthers would not approve this deal. But it does go up considerably over the years. So next year, he's going to make $5.5 million. So the Panthers are kicking in a fairly significant amount there. 2024, 6.5. 25, 7.5. It goes up every year till you get to 2030 where he's making 12.5 million. Now, this is written like a contract that is they're going to say, well, we don't need to give you a raise. The raises are already built in. We're already accounting for inflation or whatever it is they're gonna say.
If you make $5 million a year, can you even say the word inflation with the right face?
Not with a straight face, no.
Okay,
but
yeah.
I'm talking about the inflation.
It's $3 now, guys.
Yeah, I'm talking about the inflation of coaches' salaries,
yes.
not actual inflation.
But it is interesting too, because when you look at what Mel Tucker's making right now, it seems insane. But by 2029, he might be a middle tier paid coach at that point. Mm-hmm. Once that television money starts kicking in and people are getting raises and extensions and new hires are made, like
here's a great one. This is a more interesting way to ask this question we were just asking. Which Big Ten coach is going to have a good year next year that may not be repeatable and will get an absurd contract because of it?
Bielema.
Is it Bielema, Braum, or PJ Fleck? Which one is it? It's going to be one of those three.
Well, Bielema probably off this year. They were 8-4, and that's a lot better than what they are. I think Fleck has been there for a while now. And Braum has too.
And he's gotten a couple raises.
Yeah. Braum's interesting because, again, 8-4 won that division, but that's been his best record. At some point they're going to crash and burn, and especially when they go into the full conference mode and not the Western Division mode. So,
yeah. The other thing about the Big Ten that we didn't mention, by the way, where's Lincoln Riley going to rank when he gets in there?
What about Chip Kelly?
And Chip Kelly too. Yeah. So it is going to be pretty loaded.
But Lincoln Riley would be third, right?
I think so. Yeah. I think it would go Nick Kirby, Lincoln.
Nick Kirby
over
Lincoln.
Harbaugh. Over
yeah.
Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
if Lincoln Riley can get USC to the playoff this year, in year one after flipping the roster, then yeah, I'm happy.
I feel like all you have to do is breathe normally as their quarterback, a Lincoln Riley quarterback, to win the Heisman too.
I think there's two pieces to that. I think he's really good at finding.
Yeah, they're good,
really
and he's good.
Quarterbacks, and then he's good at using them and figuring out how to maximize them.
Yeah, if anybody watched Caleb Williams play, I don't think anybody thinks it's only because of Lincoln Riley, but the two match together pretty well.
It's pretty dynamic. So this is going to be fascinating to watch, and I think the Big Ten will get as cutthroat as the SEC.
Yeah,
surely because of the money.
Well, and the other thing that I'm very interested to see too, and like Luke Fickell's what we were talking about earlier, but once the investment in the football stuff, the assistant salaries, the recruiting budget, the facilities, all those things start to come up to par with the SEC, if you're going to start to see depth and talent more spread out in these programs that you haven't seen very often, because like Wisconsin is the perfect example of this. Like they've had very good football teams. They've been a very good Big Ten West team that can't match up physically against the elite teams in the country. And I'm wondering if the new influx of cash is going to help them get skill position players, their head coach that they were able to pay and get through, makes it a more attractive place. And then all of a sudden, Wisconsin is a hell of a lot better than they've ever been before as a result of all this new money.
It's possible. And how about this one? What if Indiana has a terrible year next year again and makes a change? And they decide, you know what? We have all this new money coming in. We are going to swing for the fences. Is there a Big 12 or good ACC program other than Clemson really that can stop the coach from leaving?
Like, what is the Indiana job in the ACC, Scott? Like, what
in the ACC? Like
Boston College?
Yeah, it's down though. I mean, Indiana is it's like KU. It's like Kansas. It's a basketball first enterprise where basketball is out of this world. It's fantastic, even when they're not very good, and they will spend like crazy on basketball. Football, they try to compete. And I think maybe,
but don't you think that's going to change?
State, I think I don't think so. I think that's been their mentality. That's Illinois and that's Purdue's mentality.
Scott, they're going to be getting $100 million a year from the conference. Like
they're going to spend it on something.
You have to spend it on something.
Well,
like is there going to be a day where Indiana can poach NC State's head coach if they want him?
Well, I think that day is coming. Yeah, absolutely. I think they could probably go and, Matt Campbell's probably not the coach you are thinking about right now today, but maybe next year he is, and maybe he's the type of guy that you
Like, could
jump for.
Indiana ever take Florida State's coach?
That I think Florida State would try to rally and spend to make sure the
fact that you have to go is like, I'm just telling you,
because it's going to be so much money.
It's going to be insane amount of money, and I don't know if, Florida State's got some. I know that they've got some money in the bank there, but if you start throwing around, it's kind of, what it reminds me of? What was that golf thing that everybody was complaining about?
The Live Tour.
The Live Tour.
Yeah.
That's my daughter's name. I should have remembered that. But like all these golfers that were going to commit to this golf tour that nobody cared about, it was just like, well, we'll make hundreds of millions of dollars more money and just
we'll guarantee it, and you don't even have to make the cut because there are no cuts.
There are no cuts.
The money.
It's like, yeah, hey, Mike Norvell, you want to come up to Bloomington? We'll give you a $125 million 10-year guaranteed contract. Get your ass up here. What's he going to say? I'd rather stay here and potentially get fired in 2 years.
It's going to be tough. We are laughing and making light, but that situation is going to happen somewhere. I don't know where.
I just wonder if in college football, Purdue is going to be the 33rd best job in college football.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I also think that there's probably a little bit of dose of reality to some of these programs, that they understand their place in the world, that they're not going to beat Ohio State with regularity because Indiana hasn't done it in 35 years.
Until the structure of the sport changes, they have to spend the money on something.
And they need ceiling tiles at Assembly Hall.
I know, but can a program like Indiana or Purdue take pride in being, well, we're not going to beat Ohio State.
The lesson here is you can only spend so much on basketball. Like, it's a tiny locker room by comparison. You can outfit their dorm rooms with the greatest, like Kentucky's a good example of that.
They could make a moat made out of liquid gold if they wanted to.
Right. They treat their basketball players like royalty, but they still find plenty of money to build nice new facilities for Mark Stoops, give Mark Stoops big raises.
These programs can take pride in, well, maybe we can't beat Ohio State, but we're sure it's going to beat the hell out of everybody else who isn't in the Power too.
Well, sure. That should be their goal.
But that's not the case now.
I think they're going to be under major pressure to do that.
Purdue's at the Big Ten title game. Purdue has beaten Ohio State. Purdue is, won its division. It's beaten Iowa, 4 out of 6 years. It has not beaten Wisconsin since, I think, 9/11. So, it's been a long time. But, I think but those teams probably similar to the SEC. I don't think Kentucky goes, man, we're going to beat Georgia and Alabama with regularity. No. But I think what they're doing is saying, look, we can once in a great while compete with an Ohio State, maybe win.
But I think
Arkansas
that these
is the same way.
Low tier Big Ten schools might be able to go get like the next like Lane Kiffin.
Well,
like
that's
if
what
you're a good Big 12 coach at that point, Texas, let's say Texas and Oklahoma are gone, and Brett Bjormark got a really great TV deal for the Big 12. It's still not anywhere close to the Big 10's deal. Like, if you're a good Big 12 coach, if you have proven yourself in the Big 12, well, let's put it this way: one of the schools going into the Big 12 had a great coach, and they just lost in Wisconsin. Like, that is probably the reality going forward. If an SEC or a Big 10 school wants your coach, it doesn't even matter if they're good anymore.
So we have to. Go Bosky just said, "Why is Ohio State the bar they've been surpassed now?" Should we say, well, they're not going to beat Michigan? Like, do we have to reprogram our brains to say that now?
We might. That's the whole column I wrote last Monday, and everybody got mad at me saying, "How dare you say that we should root for Michigan?" I'm like, no. I'm just saying, don't you want the conference to be more open and not completely dominated by one program? And now maybe it'll be completely dominated by Michigan, but I don't think that's the case.
No. I think there's going to be, Penn State's going to be there. Michigan State will rise up. It's always been this big three, and then you've had three teams that are like three polar bears on the same sheet of ice: Wisconsin, Iowa, and Michigan State. And once in a while, they just kind of rotate. And Nebraska should be in that iceberg too, but instead it's way back there, and it'll catch up because I think Matt Rule's a fantastic hire. He's a home run hire.
Now here's what makes it interesting, and Taz997 in the chat points this out. I'd like to be surpassed and still possibly make the playoffs. Like here's the deal: if Indiana throws, fires the money cannon at you, and you leave, say, Washington, like Washington has a chance to make the playoff in the 12-team system. Indiana still probably doesn't.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting is, you're striving to be in the top 4 in the Big Ten because maybe number 4 gets in the playoff, or at least you're at the borderline of that. So I think that's fascinating. But I think the other point is with Michigan and Ohio State is if this isn't a divisionless system, they're playing again this week. And how much relevance does that game have? What just took place, because now Ohio State has to live with this for a year, but otherwise they might go to Indy.
They might not, Scott.
But
here's the thing. If Michigan, I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. If this were 2024 and they were playing that game in the Big Ten title game this week, it was a Michigan-Ohio State rematch. If Michigan beat Ohio State the same way again and beat them twice in 8 days, like kick their ass twice in 8 days, they really might actually fire Ryan Day.
I was looking at the online odds makers today, and they said if Ohio State were to play Michigan again in an indoor dome this weekend, that Ohio State would be a 4-point favorite still.
Guys, when I say guys, I'm saying line makers. The weather was pretty nice.
No, it's not just
Columbus
it's not
day.
just no, it's not the weather. They were saying that the improbability of the big play, the big plays that they hit, because like 80% of their offense came on 5 plays, that the probability of doing that again would be very low.
I don't know. The probability of Ohio State's defense busting a coverage seems like it's
I'd take the points. I'm just saying there is a potential. Let me just put your guys' mind in a pretzel right now.
Oh boy.
You know what the spreads are for the championship games in the Pac-12 and the Big 12?
Do it. Hit it.
TCU is laying 2.5 against Kansas State. And USC is laying 3 against Utah. Do you know what the payout is on a 2-team parlay for both of those teams to win out? It's almost 3-1. So like Vegas thinks that you get paid. It's a 3-1 odds that both of those teams cover the spread, and probably something like 1.5 or 2-1 that both win.
Meanwhile, Nick Saban is sitting there going, "Oh, so you're saying there's a chance?"
So what I'm saying is, what if both lose?
Right.
We could potentially see Ohio State, Michigan play in the Fiesta Bowl.
Absolutely.
Which I think would be the greatest thing in the history of mankind.
Oh, yeah.
Wait.
Sign me up, baby.
I thought rematches were bad.
No, you're right. It would be fun. But here's the thing I will say. If Ohio State gets in the playoff and they are lined up against Georgia in the first round, and Michigan is facing TCU, right, and Michigan somehow loses and Ohio State, for whatever reason, were to win the national championship, would that even be there would be a successful season, because then it's a natty. But how do you honor that team?
It's the 2017 Alabama team. They lost the Iron Bowl, but they won the national championship.
I know. I wonder, if you ask Alabama fans, how do you feel about this?
Oh, they don't view now, because of the way they won the national championship, that team will always be remembered, but it is not remembered as like one of Nick Saban's better national title teams.
It must be nice to have 27 to choose from.
Exactly.
But for a normal program like Ohio State that's only won 2 championships since 1960 something or whatever it's been. Yeah, how do you manifest? I mean, I don't know the manifestation of the feelings that would cause.
I think you're still happy because they won the national title, but it's bittersweet.
Can you win the national championship in a Michigan game? Yeah, well, we dumped your ass, and it'd be awful.
Actually, it would give them ways to yell at one another that are different.
Yeah.
I've got one, which is 2002 when Ohio State won the national title. That year they tied for the Big Ten title with Iowa at 8-0. Iowa had one loss and was playing better than everybody by the end of the year. The one loss came to Iowa State with Seneca Wallace when Brad Banks got hurt. And so forever, their undefeated Big Ten championship, co-championship game when they lost to Iowa State.
So how does Iowa view that?
They love the Big Ten championship part of it, but they hate the fact they didn't play Ohio State. But then, oh yeah, by the way, you always lost to Iowa State. So that has always been kind of this.
What was the score of the Iowa State game?
36-31. And
That sucks, dude.
yeah,
That system sucked.
yeah. And it's too bad Ohio State and Iowa didn't play that year because that would have been a fantastic.
Because like all those bullshit seasons that like that are solved in this system.
Yeah.
So even like I'm like kind of like a anti-expansion skis. I know, like the fact that like there's no scenario whatsoever where that could possibly.
I love being right.
No, but like in this 14 playoff, there's no scenario where that could play out that way without them all having a chance.
Well, exactly.
Right?
And this is why the NCAA was full of shit all these years, because if it would have just allowed the Big Ten to have a championship game, maybe the Big Ten doesn't even care about expansion, and maybe we don't have any of this shit.
The history of why it had to be 12 teams. I wrote the story years ago. It's hilarious. The Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, D2 conference, they wrote the rule, and originally they wrote the rule to say you had to have 14 teams because they had 14 teams. One of their sister conferences, I'm blanking on the name of the other conference, but they said, hey, can we co-sponsor this with you? And can you change that 14 to a 12 because we got 12 teams? Like that was the why. There was no sacred reason. It was completely arbitrary.
Right.
So that's how dumb all this is. But we have to take another break. When we come back, there is a job opening in college football that I think Ari Wasserman would be perfect for. I want to hear his plan for how he would make UNLV football relevant. We'll ask him when we come back. Henson Shaving is a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer that has made parts for the International Space Station and the Mars rover. Well, now they're bringing that precision engineering to your shaving experience. If you're watching on the video feed right now, here is a Henson Shaving razor. It looks decidedly old school, but as you just learned, it has some high-tech stuff in there. Razor blades are like diving boards. The longer the board, the more the wobble. The more wobble, the more nicks, cuts, and scrapes. A bad shave isn't a blade problem. It's an extension problem. But by using aerospace-grade CNC machines, Henson makes metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches, which is less than the thickness of a human hair. That means it's a secure and stable blade with a vibration-free shave. And they're exactly right. Seriously, Henson Shaving wants the best razor, not the best razor business. That means no plastic, no subscriptions, no proprietary blades, and no planned obsolescence. The Henson razor works with standard dual-edge blades to give you that old-school shave with the benefits of new-school tech. Once you own a Henson razor, it's only about $3 to $5 per year to replace the blades. It's time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that will last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/Andy to pick the razor for you and use the code Andy, and you'll get 2 years worth of blades free with your razor. Just make sure to add them to your cart. It's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com. That's HENSONSHAVING.com/Andy and use the code Andy. That's hensonshaving.com/Andy. Welcome back. I've been excited about this one. Marcus Arroyo fired at UNLV. Ari Wasserman, lover of Las Vegas. I need to know, how are you going to get this job and what are you going to do when you've got it?
So my wife's best friend was a cheerleader at UNLV, and she's over here all the time because they both had babies around the same time and they're best friends since childhood, and they live like 5 minutes from us now. And I was talking to her about going to college at UNLV, and she said all they did all weekend was go to the strip all the time, which I think is like an incredible and frankly odd college experience. You know, because like it's like we all had college parties. We had to like figure out a way to get a keg into some house with creaky wooden floors.
Their party was at the Wynn,
and they're like, "Yeah, Britt's prom was like at MGM Grand's ballroom or something." Like they don't, their childhood wasn't real. But I think like making UNLV the Sin City, like just completely embracing it,
like be the heel, like really be the heel coach.
Yes, and just be like. Try to be like the you of the group of five, where you encourage celebrating, you make it
be
fun.
Tark, basically.
Yeah, Tark.
Be the football Tark.
I mean, like honestly, like why, like come to Vegas, like put slot machines in.
Well, they did have the turnover slot machine. that you
They
could
did,
pull the
yes.
handle if you got a turnover.
Yeah, and I like somebody just wrote strippers and cocaine is what I'm hearing. It's like, yeah, but that's what your NIL deal is. You're
Yeah,
paid in
right.
strippers and cocaine. No, I'm just saying like really like wear like all black Sin City uniforms
Yes.
and
Yeah.
like really like play into like that brand, because it's like UNLV just kind of exists out there, and it's like there's no real Vegas to it. You know what I mean? Like make the whole country like curious. What the hell's going on in Vegas?
Yeah.
You know, use
I'm
California,
with
get people into the campus, like have official visits at the Wynn. Like, I don't know what they do, but like I would just be like, you want to come here and like just like stand, like I could just picture like the head coach of UNLV standing in like the bar at the Waldorf Astoria that they have there next to the Aria, like in a bar with an 18-year-old looking out at the strip and going, "This city could be yours, man." like I don't know, like just like lean into it
I love it.
and
I love
hire a
it.
coach with baggage.
And
Right.
absolutely, you could hire Hugh Freeze in this situation
Yeah.
and be like, "Listen,
It's legal.
what happens here stays
No.
here, baby."
What happens in
But-
Vegas stays in Vegas. Like, and I know that it's a
Right.
little bit weird because you got to be careful. They're student athletes. They need to go to class, all
Do
that stuff.
they?
But like, if you played into it a little bit, like I would encourage, like celebrate like an asshole when you score.
Right.
You know,
Be the most
High
obnoxious.
step.
Yes.
this
we
is
want the most
Dion.
obnoxious. Yeah, the most
Deion
obnoxious
Sanders
racism.
to UNLV.
Dion.
Let's do it. I think
'Cause
he
he has
he's
such a
already been
noble-
offered the Colorado job, guys.
That's an
he can be his
uncommittable
Power
offer.
Five if he
If
wants.
he took the
Yeah.
Colorado job, I would. I'm going to say I would shit my pants. That makes zero sense.
I mean, Boulder's awesome, but
Yeah, Boulder's
the football
awesome for
program-
skiers.
Okay,
it's not
it's
awesome for
interesting,
Deion
Ari,
no,
Sanders.
it's awesome.
I
It's
will say, as a former Tampa resident, you could really use a similar recruiting pitch for USF.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it anywhere, but
minus
like
the casinos, but pretty much everything else, including the strip clubs, you could
you
absolutely
landed in the Vegas airport. You're
Except
going to land
for
in the Vegas.
USF.
You're going to land in the Vegas airport on Thursday when you get there, Andy. What do you
Yeah.
see? You see cigar stands.
Yeah.
You see, slot machines everywhere. There's a huge liquor store. You got people, advertising strip clubs all over the place. Like, just play into that stuff. That's what it is.
Okay.
So Tampa is at
Have like
Mons Venus
casino
then,
themed
or-
uniforms.
official visits at Mons Venus. I don't think
Mons
you get away
Venus?
with that.
Dude, take
I don't think
them
you
like
get away
on the
with that.
strip for their official visit dinners. Like the Golden Steer sit in the booth that Sinatra and Al Capone used to sit in. Like, come on, like Vegas, baby. Like
Bellagio fountains, and you have to
Vegas,
remember-
baby,
I'm
on
excited.
the on
Yes,
the on the.
yes.
I don't know. You got to do something.
Well,
But, like,
and-
there's
and
zero
every time somebody commits, the Bellagio fountains erupt.
Erupt with the high school colors of whoever that is.
Oh, this is
I want
tremendous.
to talk about NIL billboards on the.
Yeah.
Forget Siegfried and Roy posters.
Now,
Siegfried and Roy
NIL is
posters.
cannot be pay for play, but
Sure
can.
can.
Well, no, it really can't.
No,
But
I know. It
can-
can.
But can it be like you're allowed
$50
to
a
pull
free
the
slot
handle?
play.
Yeah. As you are being a pitch person for this casino, like you're pitching.
But you can't have an NIL deal for a casino, can you?
Probably not.
I think that gambling and beer or liquor are the
Okay.
two things. But I don't know about hookers.
Well,
I'm kidding.
They're legal in
I don't know.
certain counties in that state.
For
Not
Vegas
the one Vegas
vacation,
is
like,
in, but
Bijan Robinson could have say Bijan Robinson's name at the. I'm not going to go down this road.
don't know. Please.
Yeah,
Sorry, Bijan Robinson.
No, I'm not
We-
saying
We
Bijan.
really
but just
love
like,
your mustard.
he had mustard, so like, can't you just get the next 5-star running back to have like a promo at the Spearmint Rhino or something?
Why not?
I don't know. I mean, money's money.
I see no rule against it.
If you can have a sandwich at a deli at Zingerman's, then why can't you have a drink special at a strip club? I don't know.
Both are overpriced.
Yeah.
Both.
So,
Yeah, people are just trying to show off. Might as well use your name. I don't know. Like, we're just having fun with
I
this.
think we
And
found our quarterback, guys.
General
Michael
Booty.
Groves. General Booty transfers to UNLV.
General Booty
Yeah.
goes to UNLV. Can you imagine?
Oh, let's
Come for
make
the
this
Spearmint
happen.
Rhino, free cover just to see General Booty, and he doesn't even have to show up.
And, well, that's the thing. You just put
It's
that
just
on the
General
poster.
Booty.
Right, you put it on the billboard. General Booty at the Spearmint Rhino. And
Oh,
half,
man.
like 90% of the people who see the billboard will have no idea what that means, but they're like, that sounds like something I need to go
I mean, like
see.
the actual question is like, if we took 80% off of this, and when we actually made it seriously, and you did make it Sin City, you put it on their uniforms, and you really did play up the Vegas aspect of it, and you actually made it real. Like, is UNLV a winnable job? Like, can the right person with the right attitude make it a fun place to go?
I think anywhere in the Mountain West could be winnable.
Yeah.
And like, honestly, what if they like instilled a offensive philosophy where they never punt? Like, you did something that made people want to watch you. Yeah, made people want to watch you on television. I don't care. The only time you punt is if you're outside of your own 30, or you're outside of your own 35, or you're inside your own 35, or it's further than 4th and 20.
Steven Garcia would have been the perfect quarterback for UNLV, SC scout guy.
Could you imagine some of those sick black alternate uniforms they could wear if it's Sin City into the V-neck?
Black and silver.
Yeah, go with
like
the Raiders.
Raiders.
Yeah.
Oh,
you know,
and then
you know what?
Sin City's in red.
Yeah, that'd be cool. You know what? Silver, one black. Name it Hookers and Blow. Come see Hookers and Blow. Come to the stable for Hookers and Blow.
Hire us. Associate AD for marketing, associate AD for sales, associate
the funniest
AD
thing
for communications.
Is that they have one of the best
hospitality management.
No, they have one of the best high school football programs in America.
Bishop Gorman, absolutely.
Yeah.
They didn't offer Cedric Tillman out of high school.
But isn't the Fertitta family a huge donor for UNLV?
Well, they're also a huge donor for Houston.
And they're the ones who made the Bishop Gorman. If you've been to Bishop Gorman's high school, like their entire stadium is like a college stadium, and their facilities are insane. And it's like called
maybe the Fertittas get us when we turn Sin City, the Sin City Running Rebels. Like, this is the helmet. You ready? Black jersey, silver accents, black pants, silver helmet. One side in cursive, red, Sin. The other side in cursive, red, City.
Think about the alternate uniforms that you could have too, of like the strip lit up. Like, you know how like Maryland's crazy helmets? What if you had the strip on the helmets?
God.
And they were lit up and it was all black and the only color in it was just the strip.
And it just had like sequence like a disco ball, and just
and you could take the academic oriented, prospective student athletes, and they can just ride the rides at the Stratosphere or take them on the New York roller coaster. You can do the wholesome way.
Take them water parks.
Yeah, you can take them to Summerlin. Okay. I don't know. Yeah. And then you take the ones that the kids that it would appeal to the strip to gamble.
And you tell these guys, listen, boys, you can do this as much as you want, as long as you show up for practice and kick ass on Saturdays. That's what we need right now. Oh my God. Wait, Neil has our better helmet logo. Just a silhouette of a quote unquote dancer with a football in her arm would look insane on a helmet. You're darn right it would, Neil. You're darn right it would. Guys, we're not going to be here.
You shouldn't have asked me that, Andy. I'm sorry for that 8 minutes.
No. We're all getting hired. We are all getting hired at UNLV. I can't wait. This has been brilliant. I am so ready to bring the Sin City Running Rebels to national prominence. It's going to happen. We'll talk to you later.